Fellow FPL managers, we are back. We are going to be looking at some key players that need discussing, some players you should buy for your FPL teams, and the fixture difficulty rating. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. First off, we are going to look at the fixture difficulty rating. Now, in the bottom tier, we have one team and one team only. Now, that is Brentford, and in Brentford's team we have Thiago, obviously a very popular player right now, scoring 5 goals in the last 2 games. It's ridiculous. He's on fire and he's above everyone else in goals by quite some bit except Haaland. And even if you look at non-penalty goals, he's still second for non-penalty goals, so he's a player on really good form. He's been really good all season, but the Brentford fixture run does not look good. Fair enough, away to Chelsea is a red fixture, but they're on bad form, so it could be a fairly easy game. Then the next game after that, home to Forest, is also pretty good. But after that, Brentford have 3 really tough games in a row. So do you really want to be looking to bring in Thiago ahead of this bad fixture run? Fair enough, if you own him, I think he's worth holding. But looking to transfer him in this game week, I don't think it's the best idea. But we will talk more about it later because it's hard to ignore a player on such good form. In the 4th tier, the light red tier, we have a few notable players, you know, Cunha and Bruno of Man United, Wilson of Fulham, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin of Leeds, some popular players who are on good form, or Bruno, for example, just coming back from injury. Now, looking at Cunha, he's probably a sell, you know, with Mbeumo coming back very soon. He may be back for the Man City game for this game week. Bruno coming back from injury. There's many options looking to the Man United attack that seem to be better than Cunha. And if you can make a straight swap from Cunha to the likes of Bruno or Mbeumo, it's probably worth it. Even though these are some tough games coming up for Man United, Bruno and Mbeumo look so strong this season. Fair enough, away to Arsenal is like a big no-no for any attacker, but home to Man City isn't the worst fixture in the world, and long-term Man United have a good fixture run. Looking to the likes of Harry Wilson from Fulham, fair enough, the fixture run isn't great, but with him being so cheap and scoring in some fairly tough games already, I still think he's a good player to own, even buy. And looking to Calvert-Lewin, tough fixtures have not been hard for him all season. Fair enough, that's true, he's on good form, he's got good underlying data, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin is the biggest troll in FPL. If you've been playing for a few years, you know this. I guarantee if any of you are considering bringing in Calvert-Lewin, he will miss a penalty the game where you transfer him in. So while he is doing well and he could be good for the future, just be careful when looking at Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There are some popular assets in the mid-tier. We've got players from Newcastle, Villa and Liverpool, and their fixture runs are all average. Well, you know, at first glance. You look at Liverpool and Newcastle, they both have really good entry points, but if you have a good entry point and you're not in one of the top tiers of fixture runs, then the 5 that follow are probably quite bad. And looking here, they are. The fixture run in general for Liverpool and Newcastle isn't good. So even players on good form like Bruno Guimaraes aren't really players you would necessarily be eager to buy, even the likes of Ekitike or Wirtz, because after this game week, their fixtures get tough. And in my opinion, they become suboptimal players to own, especially Bruno Guimaraes. I think he's been fairly fortunate to get points recently, and I don't think he's going to continue getting points. Fair enough, that's just my opinion and I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. He sits too deep, his underlying data isn't good, and that penalty was fairly fortunate. He's not going to take a penalty for the rest of the season, guys, and that's the truth, okay? He was very lucky to get one, but fair enough, he did well. If you owned him and you got his points, fair play. I just don't think he's going to continue to keep scoring points. Villa assets, on the other hand, they look pretty good if you can get around the fact your players are probably going to blank away to Newcastle in game week 23. The fixtures after that, while they don't look amazing, they're not incredibly difficult and they can be held, you know, for the next 5 or 6 game weeks after. So they're good long-term players to own. Watkins especially looks amazing with his underlying data that we'll look at more later. And while I'm not a huge fan of Rodgers and I don't think he's going to score many more goals this season, creatively, in terms of big chances created and expected assists, he looks all right. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you guys bring him in because I still think he's subpar, but he's a good player to hold, even though these fixtures aren't necessarily amazing. There are loads of teams in tier 2 this game week, a lot of teams with decent fixture runs. The important ones, Man City and Arsenal, the 2 best teams in the league, the 2 best attacks, maybe the 2 best defenses. So no matter what fixture run Man City or Arsenal have, some of their players you would always look to own. For example, Erling Haaland, maybe Phil Foden, even though he's not on the best form. We'll also talk about him a little more a bit later. As for Arsenal, their defense can be held through literally any fixture run. You know, even if they had 6 games in a row where it was red fixture, red fixture, red fixture, they could still probably keep 3 clean sheets because in the tough games, that's what they do. They park the bus they win 1-0 from scoring a goal from a set piece. Going back to City as well, the likes of Foden and Shirky, these players are getting sold very slowly, especially Foden. With a fixture run this good, I don't think you should be selling these players, especially because Foden's underlying data isn't even that bad. Fair enough, it's not as good as it was when he was getting a goal and an assist every game, but he's still doing pretty well for underlying data. He's not been in the goals much recently, but I do think selling Foden is a mistake, especially ahead of this fixture run. But Arsenal and Man City are not the only teams in this tier. You know, you can look for differentials looking at teams like Brighton, Bournemouth and West Ham. They're not the best teams, but they all have good differential assets. For example, Bowen, Tavernier and Jorginho Rutter. They're all fairly decent options that you can target because they're on a good fixture run. They're just not players you would own when the fixtures turn bad. And in the top tier, there is only one team head and shoulders above the rest, and that is Chelsea. They're well ahead in terms of fixture difficulty rating. Their strong fixtures are hard to ignore, but I wouldn't recommend any of you bring Chelsea players in this game week, which may shock you because I'm a big fixtures man. And home to Brentford plus away to Palace isn't awful right now. Fair enough, they're not easy, but they're not incredibly difficult. The issue is Chelsea have just been taken over by a new manager, and you want to use these next 2 game weeks not to bring in Chelsea players, but to monitor who's going to be getting regular starts and regular minutes and who isn't. You know, you want to know who's going to start because that 4-game run from game week 24 to game week 27 is ridiculous. The best 4-game run I've seen all season. And you want to own the right Chelsea players. You can't be going in there blind back in, say, Pedro Neto in game week 22 when he may not even be starting in game week 24. So these next 2 game weeks, even though it's really hard to ignore Chelsea players, just monitor the Chelsea attackers, see who's going to be getting regular minutes, then attack in game week 24. Unless we're looking at Chelsea defenders, I think Chelsea defenders are fairly good to bring in right now if you want to. You know, the likes of Chalobah, he's definitely going to be starting regardless. I just don't see him getting benched anytime soon. Going into the players to buy, looking at defenders first of all, we just talked about Chalobah. We know how good the fixture run is for Chelsea, but the Chelsea defensive data is actually incredibly poor in the last 8 game weeks. In fact, they're 20th for expected clean sheets. So it's weird for me to be recommending a defender from a team with that defensive data looking so poor, but Chelsea's defensive data has also looked really good this season. They're just on a run of bad form, and I believe the new manager will bring about some new defensive security. But once again, I personally would wait until game week 24. Next up, we have Núñez, very reliable for minutes, decent DEFCON numbers. Going forward, he's not as strong as everyone makes him out to be, but playing as a fullback under Pep, you're always going to be involved in some big chances now and then. So he's still a great player to own, decent going forward, but don't expect a goal and an assist every week like he's been getting. As you can see, 0.06 expected goal involvements per 90 isn't exactly sensational. Then we have Guéhi. Outside the Arsenal defence, I think he is the best defender to go for. Good DEFCON numbers paired with an average fixture run, and to be honest, Crystal Palace have average defensive data, but, you know, Guéhi has 0.2 XGI per 90, which is very high. And with Crystal Palace appearing to participate in a lot of low-scoring games recently, I do believe Crystal Palace will be in with the chance of some clean sheets because the teams they're playing against aren't exactly offensively minded either. So I think he's a good player to go for if you're not looking for the Arsenal defence. But above him, we have Jurrien Timber. Very small rotation risk, but if he does get benched for a clean sheet, he will make up for it in goals and assists. He makes a lot of forward runs into the final third in the box, but his main appeal is the fact he plays for the strongest defence in Europe. And even though the underlying defensive data doesn't exactly show that right now, they've not had their strongest back four for a little while, and they've made a couple defensive errors at the back, which has harmed their underlying data. But in general, you should expect their data to be a lot better very soon. And I would talk about the fixture run, but a fixture run for an Arsenal defender is pretty much obsolete, like I said earlier. Going to Gabriel as the #1 defender to own, he is so good. He has scored 2 goals in his first 2 games back, and against Liverpool, that third game, he should have scored a third one. You know, he gets a lot of big chances from set pieces. He is their set piece man. That's the reason why I put him above Timber. You know, he's also better for DEFCONs and more reliable for minutes. So Gabriel, without a doubt, the best defender to own in FPL through any fixture run. You can set and forget him in your team for the rest of the season. Before we begin, I already see some people complaining about this. Put your pitchforks down. If you expect me to recommend the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Morgan Rogers, you're in the wrong place. Click off the video. I would only recommend those type of players if they had a really good fixture run, and while they're not immediate sells, I wouldn't recommend you guys bring them in your teams. In 5th, we have Wilson, who we talked about earlier. Not the greatest fixture run, but his underlying numbers are good and he is very cheap. And even though his next 4 games aren't great, there's not any one fixture that's particularly hard, you know. Above him, we have Foden, which people are not going to like. A lot of people are selling him. He's blanked 5 games in a row. But if you look at the fixture run, you know, look at the teams with good fixture runs and pick those players with good underlying data from those teams, you end up with Phil Foden, reliable minutes, and 0.44 expected goal involvements per 90 is very good. It's better than most. It's not great because he's not especially high in expected goals or expected assists, but 0.44 expected goal involvements per 90 is better than most midfielders. And the last 4 fixtures haven't been great for Man City in general. It's not like Foden's been playing poorly. Man City in general have. Even Haaland's been blanking, and no one's selling Haaland, so Phil Foden should be back in the goal involvements very soon, and you want to be there to own him. I would still recommend him as one of the best midfielders to buy in FPL this game week, despite what everybody thinks of him. Bruno Fernandes, I won't spend ages on Bruno because we'll talk about him at the end, since, you know, it needs more of a discussion as he's just come back from injury and you want to know when you should bring him back in. But as you can see, I do rate him higher than most midfielders in the game right now, despite the next 2 games being incredibly difficult. Tavernier in second place is going to be unpopular too, but if you guys really look at it, he's quite good. His underlying data is bad, but remember how cheap he is, okay? Keep that in mind when I talk about him. He is on a lot of free kicks, a lot of corners, and maybe even penalties with Cliver out injured. He's got a lot of set pieces and his DEFCON numbers aren't that bad. They're not amazing, but you'll see him hit it now and then. He's also picked up a few big chances this season. Not in the last 4 game weeks, as you can tell, it looks pretty bad. But Tavernier in general, while he's not the most offensive player, for FPL, when you're looking at probability, if you're taking that many corners, that many free kicks, making that many forward runs, maybe taking penalties, you're eventually going to be involved in something. And, you know, he may not take penalties. We don't know who it's going to be out of Tavernier and Evanilson, because Tavernier has taken one this season when Semenyo and Clive won on the pitch, but neither was Evanilson. So we don't know for sure, but Tavernier looks like a great option going forward. Very underrated, very cheap. Definitely the best cheap midfielder you can own in FPL, even better than Harry Wilson, which a lot of people will disagree with. But, you know, I look at what's going to happen. I don't base my decision on what's already happened. And in the number 1 spot, if you guys have been watching my videos recently, none of you will be surprised. Rice is just a great set and forget player to put in your team through any fixture on. He's only 7 million while taking most of the set pieces for the team, who is first for set piece goals in the Premier League. He's really good for DEFCONs. He makes a lot of forward runs, takes a lot of shots inside the box for a midfielder, a CDM at that. So why get Saka when you can afford Declan Rice for 3 million cheaper and upgrade your team elsewhere? I know people don't like it when, you know, I say Saka's overpriced, but it's true. Declan Rice is going to score very similar points for a lot less. If Saka gets a penalty, that's when he'll outscore Declan Rice. But is 3 million really worth it just for penalties when Gyökeres may take a penalty now and then? I don't think so. I believe Rice is one of the best value players in the game, and he's got so many avenues to go down when looking for points. Looking at the forwards now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin comes up first. Now, I've been betting against this guy for a long while, you know, but his form's been good through that tough fixture run time and time again. It's so hard to ignore him. The only reason he's not even higher up the list is because I still don't think he'll keep it up. I still think he's eventually going to drop off. And like I said earlier, he is a big troll in FPL. Someone who's going to miss a penalty as soon as you bring him in your FPL team. So sure, he's a great cheap forward, and if he's the only one on here that you can afford, go for it, but I personally wouldn't go there. After him, we have Bowen. Now, as an owner, I've been disappointed with him recently. 1 goal in the last 4, but I still think he's good to target. You know, his next 6 games still aren't awful, and Bowen historically has been a very good FPL asset, but West Ham aren't doing well, and I am kind of thinking, you know, did I make a mistake bringing in a West Ham player? I remember earlier in the season, I thought Strand Larsen was going to be a good player to own because Wolves had a good fixture run, but little did I know, Wolves maybe this season are the worst team in Premier League history. But I still back Bowen. I still think he's going to do well, but I can't say that with as much confidence as I have been these last few weeks. Above him, or should we say on the same level, I believe Thiago. Like I said earlier, he has an awful fixture run, but the form is just so good, you can't ignore it. You know, 5 goals in the last 2 games is very good. His ownership is also going to be very high, so if he does score, it's going to hurt your rank massively. I personally am not going to go there, but I am scared. Playing away to Chelsea, like on paper it's a red fixture, but Chelsea aren't on the best form right now. Just one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at Thiago is that before he scored 5 goals in 2 games, he had 0 in the 6 prior. So it's not like he's a consistent, good, high-level goal scorer. He's very up and down, and in the past has often needed penalties to get high scores. So just beware. He's had a great last 2 game weeks, but he may not keep that up. And that's why I've only kept him as a 6 out of 10. You know, he's not anything like a 7 or an 8 because he's not proven me he can be just yet. Now we look to Watkins, who I rate a little higher. Now, Watkins' underlying data is looking unreal. Like, you don't see this too often from strikers in the Premier League, but wow. The XG, the big chances, are very good, and he's finishing them. So despite this subpar fixture run, I rate him fairly high. And if he was on a good fixture run, I would rate him a lot higher than a 7 out of 10. I can see him trailing off slightly, like playing away to Newcastle and home to Brentford aren't especially amazing games for a striker, but with a play on form this good, playing for Aston Villa, who are a very strong team, I do see it hard for him to not continue scoring, but we don't know how it will go, you know. Earlier on in the season, Watkins was on very bad form and no one saw him doing well anytime soon, but all of a sudden, he's picked it up and he's looking like a really strong FPL asset, like the Watkins we knew a couple of years ago in FPL, who was in nearly all of our teams because he was doing so well. I've put Evan Nilsson above Watkins, but realistically, these guys are sort of on the same level. Some of you are going to be surprised to see Evan Nilsson this high. You know, Bournemouth aren't doing too great, and Evan Nilsson has not started every single game for Bournemouth. But with Cliver out injured and Semenyo going, I find it very hard to believe Evan Nilsson won't start nearly every game going forward. And Kruppi Jr. has been a threat to Evan Nilsson's minutes in the past. Kruppi Jr., as you can see here, is one of the top 5 highest transferred in forwards in FPL as well. But Kruppi Jr. will not replace Evan Nilsson. If anything, he will play alongside Evan Nilsson. Not every game. I still do believe Kruppi Jr. is a huge rotation risk, whereas Evan Nilsson is the starter for Bournemouth. And that's why, ahead of their really good fixture run, I've recommended him as the best forward to target in FPL. You guys may not agree. He's not really done amazing in the last couple game weeks like Thiago, but in the future, I believe he will score more. Only time will tell. Now, should you sell Ekitike? He's not exactly on bad form, but he is a rotation risk. But playing Burnley home in game week 22 is a fixture you do not want to be selling a player for. My advice to all of you is wait. Liverpool play Monday evening, the evening of the day I'm uploading this video. So you might be watching after Monday at 7:45 PM. And if you are, you can go check that game and see if Ekitike is in the squad. If Ekitike is in the squad, bench or starting 11 on Monday, that means you should probably keep him because he will probably be fit for game week 22 the following weekend. But let's say another scenario, okay? Ekitike is not in the squad, he's not on the bench, he's nowhere to be seen. What should you do then? Well, I think you should wait again. Wait for the press conference before the game week deadline on Saturday. I know that's annoying because, you know, managers don't usually reveal a lot in press conferences, but they sometimes do, and it's best to get all information available before you make your decisions. So ignore the price changes. You need to wait for info over price changes in this game week. It's very important because if Ekitike starts home to Burnley, that's a big swing if you sold him. You could lose out on a lot of points. My plan with Ekitike, if he is fit to play against Burnley, or I think he's going to be fit to start, I'm going to keep him for game week 22 and game week 23. Then in game week 24, when Manchester United and Chelsea's fixture run looks really good, I'm going to see if a striker like Sesko or Liam Delap is good to target so I can sell Ekitike in game week 24. I'd ideally like to hold him for game week 22 and 23 if I can. After that, Bruno Fernandes. Should you buy Bruno Fernandes right away despite his 2 really tough games? Well, there's some players who are worth selling to Bruno and some that aren't. Cunha to Bruno, if you can afford it in one free transfer, I think it's a good straight swap. Even though Bruno is playing some tough games, he's fairly fixture proof, and we've seen that over the years of FPL playing for Man United. He's always done really well. I mean, playing away to Arsenal is never good for an attacker, and I wouldn't back him a lot in that game week. But home to Man City, he's got every chance of a goal involvement. He's sort of like Declan Rice in the sense he takes every single set piece, except Bruno also takes penalties. You know, he takes the whole lot. Manchester United are also getting a manager change. Bruno is not going to be playing as a number 8 anymore. He's going to be playing as a number 10. You can see defensive contributions get reduced, but going forward, he could be a lot more threatening, which is ridiculous to think because he's already very threatening going forward, but he's going to be playing in a more advanced position. He did it last game week against Burnley. He didn't play the full 90, but he still got an assist and 7 points to show for it. My plan with Bruno is to actually wait past these 2 tough game weeks. Even though I'd like to own him, I can't do a straight swap from Cunha to Bruno, so I'm not going to bring Bruno in. I'm actually going to bench Cunha because I have lots of squad depth. Bench Cunha for home to Man City and away to Arsenal, save up a few free transfers, then restructure my team so I can afford Bruno Fernandes in game week 24 when that Man United fixture run gets really strong. Anyway, guys, that is it from me. If you made it this far, you are greatly appreciated. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I will see you all in the next video.